Hey, Year 7 health students, I hope you're going well. Another video for you here. Just a reminder, we're in now week 8 of a 10-week term. So the majority of classes are all up to the same point at this week 8, which is looking at gender roles. So we've progressed nicely through personal identity, which started with individuals' likes and dislikes, and then it ended up growing into things that we call values and character strengths. Now, a reminder to you that your character strengths, they're the things that you're good at, and you also have your weaknesses, character weaknesses, and they're the things that you really want to improve on as an individual. But then we also have our values, and values are different to character strengths because the values are the things that you think are important. Now, don't forget that someone might have the same character strength and value. For example, honesty. Honesty might be a really good character strength of somebody, that they're always honest regardless of how hard it is to speak the truth. But it could also be a value, and it's really important for them that they value honesty as something that is really important in their relationship building. So after we went through the individual and personal identity, we moved into looking at respectful relationships. And the first lesson around respectful relationships was all about identifying different types of relationships and understanding that it's more than just the idea of boyfriend boyfriend or boyfriend girlfriend or girlfriend girlfriend, which is what a lot of people were making the assumption when we say the word relationship. We have a relationship with parents and guardians. We have a relationship with friends. We have a relationship with siblings. There's a relationship between a coach and a player. There's a relationship between teacher and student. And so we looked at all these different types of relationships, but we also looked at the fact that relationships could be both positive and negative. And the difference between positive and negative relationships were whether both or multiple parties or groups of people or people involved in that relationship were happy and were getting something out of a relationship. And therefore, it was a positive relationship. From that, we started looking at things that would be deemed respectful and disrespectful behaviors. And we started looking at the idea of a bystander, which is somebody who makes assumptions or sees something happening within a relationship. And therefore, it's up to that person as a bystander to not be silent if they see or hear something that they believe is disrespectful. It's to name it, and it's to have the courage to talk about it and go to the right people to seek assistance and help. And then finally, last lesson, we were looking at communication, and the communication also involved active listening. And so a lot of us were on Zoom, and we were using the idea of these breakout rooms where we were talking to each other. But more importantly, we were listening to what the other person had to say. We spoke about things like positive body language, eye contact, nodding your head as you listen to things, and also asking clarifying questions and ensuring that that clarifying question was using the words that the person speaking to you was using, so it showed that you were paying attention and listening to them. So that's brought us all the way through to our final learning. And this learning is all about putting individuals and relationships together. And it's about gender norms. And it's about understanding what society as a whole, but also you as an individual, see as some gender bias and norms, what the right thing to see and perceive is, and also how we can challenge and work on this. So I'm just going to minimize this, and then we're going to get the work up for today. So through this PowerPoint, I'm just going to work through. You are going to need to go to the lesson plan for today or open up the PowerPoint itself so that you can gain access to a couple of web links, but you can also just use them, type them into your browser from watching this video. So just like last week, you're going to have to pause the video at certain points and work with it from there. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to watch these two videos. Now, I'm not allowed to, because of copyright, play them through this video. So I'm going to ask you now to pause this video that you're watching. Either go to where the PowerPoint is stored, where I'll show you is over here on Compass. Under the Resources tab, you go into Year 7 Health Semester 1, Term 2, and down to Week 8, and the PowerPoint's in there. But I will also have the two links pasted in the lesson plan today. So I want you to watch the videos. The first video will be this one here, which is about a class turning around kids' assumptions of gender roles. And then the second video was working with a class and interviewing kids about gender roles. So I want you to watch both those videos and then come back to this one here. Excellent. Now that you've watched those two videos and hopefully you've understood what we mean by gender roles and gender bias, bias meaning that you sway your opinion one way or another, now we're ready to move on. So it's time to answer these questions. Now in class we would have done this as a brainstorm. I'm going to adapt it for our online learning and I'm going to ask you to write what you believe the answer to be to these questions here. When we join the Zoom a little bit later in this class, your teacher will go through these answers and we will talk about them as a group. But if you've already written your ideas down, it really helps with the sharing process. Now, this doesn't matter whether we're in an all-male class or whether we have a gendered split class. I want you to answer these questions. So the first question, how is gender different to a person's sex? So there's two different words there and they're not interchangeable in this sense. I want to know what the difference is between somebody's gender and their sex. Now the next question after you've written an answer to that, so you might want to pause the video each time and then press play again. How are gender roles adopted? What we mean by role is the carrying out of actions. So how are actions that are perceived to be either male or female actions adopted, gained, okay? The next one that we're looking at are how are males perceived, or that means seen, in today's world or society? So what are there some assumptions or general ideas that males are like or do in the world today? And then the last question is the flip of that. So how are females perceived or seen in today's world or society? So press pause, have some time to answer, just take one or two sentences for each one. Just the first thing that pops into your head. You shouldn't be doing any research on this. It should be you know the answer or you don't, or you have your own opinion or you don't, and writing those answers down either in your book or on Microsoft Word document. Okay, so once you've pressed play on the video again, it's time to move on. We're going to look at this, and the definition here is that gender, it describes the differences between girls and boys, men and women. So that's what its purpose is, to describe the differences between males and females, both at boys and girls' age and at men and women's age. But there are differences, and these differences are shaped or molded or changed by people's culture, traditions, and history. Now, when we're on Zoom, I'm going to expand on that as your teachers will, but this is really about understanding what the idea is within your world and your culture and the country in which you live, the job that you hold, the socioeconomic status of your family and your community. How does that shape how males and females are perceived in the world? And so what's really important here is that at different levels of the world, so different countries, both in different cultural sense, but also in different status sense, the difference between males and females and how men and women as a gender are seen and perceived is very different. The second dot point there says that gender norms, that is what we expect for society, the people around the world, to see as appropriate or normal behaviors for that gender and that role. So, for example, it is expected that men would dress in a specific way and women would dress in a different way. And the question there that's asked is, how is that changed in the past number of years, but also how does it continue to change and why is there a change and a shift in that dress code for males and females? Now the final slide here is just asking you to try and look at a few things here and tell me, or write them down I guess, is would you consider these things a girl or a boy thing, just generally? And then when we get on Zoom, we can argue and discuss and really articulate why is that only a male thing or a female thing, and why is it important that it needs to be challenged if it is something that is disrespectful to only be one gender or the other. So as you look through that list, what are those things that trigger in your head as going, oh, only boys do that, or only girls do that, or more boys do that than girls? So have a read through this list, and then we're going to log into Zoom and we're going to spend time doing two things. We're going to have a look at the difference between these 4 questions answers of what you've written and what we discuss as a class, and then we're going to look at this list here and see why is it important to look at differences in each. So there's going to be a Zoom link. It'll either be on your lesson plan. Some teachers will put it on the lesson plan. Others will email it out to you halfway through class. But it's going to be time now, once you've written through some answers there and read through those slides and gone through this video, to join your teacher. You'll be able to ask any questions, but you'll also be asked to join in some discussion to talk about gender differences, biases, and norms. Enjoy. See you soon.